What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to our match reaction after the champions have been beaten 3-1 at Stamford Bridge by Chelsea. A result that, well, I can't have any complaints about because Chelsea were the better side on the day. But we now know why Arne Slot doesn't rotate too much, because some of those players that were given a chance today, I think I'm being generous to say they didn't really take that opportunity. The only one I think who could probably take credit away was Endo. At least we made things interesting, said Anita. Yes, look, at the end of the game, we did at least make it interesting. That's fair to say. But I want to just go through my take on a few things in this game. I'm done with Trent and I'm done with Darwin. And I don't care how harsh it sounds, and I don't care how many people disagree or want to call me ungrateful or anything. I'm done with both of them. Trent Alexander-Arnold played that game like he didn't give a damn, like he was already in Madrid, and you've seen more from Bradley when he came on. I know Arne probably had to start him today because Bradley wasn't fit enough to start, but that should be it now. That's the end of Trent. Put him on the bench and let him head off to Madrid. Darwin is just a terrible, terrible footballer. Nothing else to add to that other than he headed a ball from 6 yards out that was closer to the corner flag than the goal, dead central, and he could have been marginally offside. He is done. He has to be sold. He isn't good enough. Kwanzaa shows that when the going gets tough, he hasn't got the mentality, in my opinion. So I think he needs to be moved on. Diogo Jota, absolutely useless up top today. And Mohamed Salah had a poor game as well. Let's not shy away from saying that. Salah was nowhere today and his touch looked off and heavy at times. So that's my quick summary of it from my side. But now let's go over and see what you guys think. Matthew said, my comments on Kwanzaa being helpless were in reply to a comment mentioned the OG was trying to imply that Kwanzaa was blameless for the pen. Wasn't trying to... Yeah, look, it was a hospital pass, but he didn't need to make the challenge. He needs to be aware of his surroundings and that Caicedo was going nowhere. He was going to the end line. Salah was extremely sloppy. Attacks ended with him. Yeah, a lot of the time he ran into an opposition defender, ricocheted off the legs and went behind, or his crosses were blocked. It wasn't a good performance from Mo. No argument about that whatsoever. Troy King Edit said Kwanzaa's head gets too hot when he makes mistakes. I agree with that. Look, he can look like a Rolls Royce of a defender at times, but when the going gets tough, I think he crumbles. And you could say it's because of his age, and there's fairness in that. But I would say, like I've said all the way through, if a decent offer, and by decent I mean anything upwards of £40 million, comes in for Jarell Kwanzaa, I'd be selling. That's my take on him. We looked a little bit different when the manager made some changes and Maka came on. We looked like the midfield had a better shape to it. Szoboszlai was, again, a bit hit and miss. His pass led to the penalty. Chiesa, what's the point of 8.5 minutes? I don't know what that's going to change in the manager's mind or not. But ultimately, Trent and Darwin are my two big disappointments today. I thought that they were both shocking. And I can't understand why Chiesa gets ignored and Darwin, who disrespects the club, who disrespects the manager, who disrespects why he thinks he wasn't being played, again gets to come on and play like he doesn't give a shit and snigger. I'm done with him. Stevie Boy said, Liverpool get offered good money for Elliot. I believe he's done as a Liverpool player. Look, I probably agree. I love Harvey Elliot. I love his attitude, but I would agree that there is probably a big drop-off there and that he hasn't convinced the manager. So, you know, there are players who we may like on a personal level, but I can understand if Arne Slot moves the likes of Elliot on. I can understand if he moves Kwanzaa on. I can definitely understand the forwards and Jota and Darwin getting moved on if they do. The only one I think maybe took their chance today was Endo. I thought Endo was quite good when he played today. Mark Bell said, Slot justified why he doesn't pick some players. 100% agree with that, mate. Absolutely agree with that. And maybe that was his plan, you know? Maybe he's shown the owners, there's a reason I don't play these players. Because whatever about the game against Plymouth where I fail, it's unfair to criticise players who are playing with a very, 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 very changed team. Today, the guts of the team are out there. Salah was on the pitch. Gakpo was on the pitch. Trent was on the pitch. Virgil was on the pitch. Ali was on the pitch. So there was certainly a better group of players there for those fringe players to make an argument to stay at the club. And they didn't. None of them except maybe Endo. And I say that with a heavy heart because I wanted Elliot to do well, but he didn't. Steve Alders, he said, people might not notice what the midfield does, but you certainly see what is missing when starters aren't there. It hobbles the attack and we concede way more chances. David Newell said, this is crazy to say considering we've won the league. I'm not totally convinced with Slot yet. I'm not blown away with his style of play. Definitely needs to gear up or two for next season. Look, I'm just hoping that what we hope was the case today is the case, in that this was him underlining why he hasn't been playing some of these players. If that's the case, fair play, and I think he's made his point. But again, I think we'll have the answer to this in the transfer market when we see what business the club does. Corbyn said, I see Elliot, Kwanzaa, Jota and Nunez going. Again, I would agree with every one of those. Some of them with more sadness than others. Luis Diaz should have came on. What do you think about Luis Diaz being paid 55k a week compared to higher players? He needs a better contract. He's on more money than 55k a week. Look, not a lot more, but my understanding is it's closer between the 60 to 70 bracket. But look, either way, definitely deserving of a pay increase. And I think the club are going to sit down and negotiate that with him. Diaz has had a very good end to the season with Liverpool. He's been one of our better players over the last 5 to 10 games. So I hope he stays. I don't see any need to upset that left-hand side. You've got Diaz and Gakpo, two very good players there. So, yeah, I agree with you, Antonio. Definitely. Maybe he wants to give him a break, because remember, Arsenal are coming next week as well. So some of these guys could have been given a breather. Like Gravenberch, as an example, wasn't even in the squad today. You would think that this is to make sure that they're going to deliver the message to Arsenal next week when they come about why we're champions. So, but I agree with your comments overall, my man, and thank you. Nothing to play for except the shirt and the travelling fans that go down and your club's future, Dave. I mean, I'll never buy into this nothing to play for argument that anybody puts across, because the people that travel down to London had to work to pay for that, had to work to pay for the ticket. Some of these players are playing for their futures, and you don't want to go out there, get a guard of honour as Premier League champions and lose the game. There's always something to play for. And again, winning is a good habit to get into, and it's not easy to just switch these things on and off again. So, look, agree to disagree. I always think there's something to play for. Easier to beat Chelsea than Newcastle in the Champions League. Yeah, but which one of them are going to be more dangerous in the transfer market with Champions League money? And it's absolutely going to be Chelsea. And if we lose out to Huijsen, as an example, and he ends up at Chelsea, and we look back at this and think, well, if they hadn't got Champions League football, he may not have moved. These are the type of knock-on things that I'm speaking about. But again, a lot of it's conjecture, because I can't sit here and say factually it's going to make a difference to anything. But it's not never nice to lose a game. Darwin has all the qualities of a deadly number 9, but he can't finish at all. That feels like a contradiction of a post. Darwin has all the physical attributes to be an athlete, is what I would say, but he doesn't have the football IQ to back it up. And how a centre forward can head a ball from 6 yards out, dead centre of goal, and not put it within 10 to 12 yards of the goal is truly... I'd laugh at that if I seen it in Sunday League. And to think of a guy who's on over 120 or 130,000 pound a week that just doesn't give a shit. He shouldn't be played for me. After he put that social media post up saying that, oh, no way I'm not getting played now because of the Benfica bonus money, which is absolute pony, he shouldn't get near the pitch for me, because that's disrespecting the manager, it's disrespecting the club, it's disrespecting the intentions of the club, and most importantly, it's turning a blind eye to the real reason he's not playing, which is because he's been shit. That's the truth of it. And Darwin needs to take that on the chin and not look to blame everybody else all the time. He's nobody to blame for failing at Liverpool but himself.